Some micro brands promise the earth. This one actually delivers it. Welcome back to the channel, I'm Pip. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, as it'll mean I can keep making these videos and I can make more of them more often. And give the video a like if you like it. This is the Kaal Multiverse edition. The brand has sent this in for review and I don't have to send it back, hence the paid promotion tag in the top right corner. Now, that won't affect my review, my opinion, nor how I express it. The brand don't have any copy approval and they're seeing this at the same time as you are. We'll go through the 4 key categories today and give the watch a score out of 10 for each one. We'll award bonus points for that elusive watch magic. You'll probably know if this watch has that for you already, so let's just get into the review.
Let's start where we always start, the design. Yeah, it kind of speaks for itself.
If you're still watching, then neither my face nor that of this watch has offended you, and you probably know if the Kaal Multiverse is for you.
Let's face it, this thing is going to be divisive. Sitting within a 42mm case is a dial that has to be seen to be believed. Front and centre isn't actually the earth, as the name would suggest, but rather a kind of steel car bumper that looks like it's drilling into the earth, possibly fracking for oil. It's screwed in dead centre, and that screw is flanked by what look like 2 Eiffel Towers. 2 Eiffel Towers that have come together to frack and mimic a car bumper.
I don't know.
We'll talk about the earth shortly, but one thing that I really do like about this dial is the anthracite disc upon which the numerals are printed. It gives it a genuinely spacey feel.
And not the kind of spacey feel that Kevin gives out in the back of his car.
The minute track around the perimeter of the dial is a kind of creamy off-white colour and matches the colour of the second hand, which is a kind of little moon or a satellite, a little dot, a pip.
What?
No, we're just talking about the second hand.
Tell them about the minute and hour hand.
Yeah, nice one, I will. The minute hand is, I think, the sun. There is no hour hand per se. Instead, the hour hand is the anthracite disc that I was talking about. It moves ever so slightly as the seconds and minutes pass by, and the hour is whatever number is to the right of the marker at 12.
Well, not the 12 exactly, the triangle at 12, just the triangle at the top.
You can see it here as I pull out the push-pull signed crown and alter the time. I've set it at about 10 past 9. That crown, by the way, is very diminutive given this watch's diameter, but also the thickness of the watch doesn't help.
Flat earthers, look away now.
Kaal watch clearly don't consider domes just something that Stephen King and London can do. On the wrist, the Multiverse's massive 19mm thickness is largely thanks to the insanely domed sapphire crystal. Look down at your wrist sideways and you'll see the real bulbousness of the glass, the thickness of those Eiffel Towers, and the sphericalness,
that is a word,
of the earth, which has a really nice texture. But a couple of things. Why did they depict such a cloudy day? You can just about make out a continent.
Not sure which one. South America, maybe?
That huge screw in the middle also massively gets in the way. I'd like to see more of the earth and more of the countries on it. This doesn't fill me with the sort of wonder and awe that I can imagine I'd feel on a spaceship looking down at this planet. I just kind of think that it's gonna rain. I'm also not sold on the font. It feels a bit...
And this is very specific. It feels very Baldur's Gate 2.
It's kind of kitschy, camp, whatever you want to call it. Plus, there's no space for any branding, which, even if minimal, I do like on a watch.
The dimensions and that 30 meters of water resistance don't make it the most versatile of watches either. If you like this design, then take this number with a pinch of salt. It's a 4 out of 10 from me. Now on to the movement.
Making the world go round, so to speak, is the Seiko NH35, and I know a lot of people will be annoyed even at just hearing Seiko NH35, but I promise.
It's not all bad.
This is still an automatic movement and you'll have no trouble getting it serviced, as about 98% of the world's watches are now powered by it anyway. Operating the push-pull crown is easy. Pull it out to the first position and you do get a ghost date function, which is annoying but not the end of the world, and I think a date would look kind of weird on this watch anyway. but gets a second base with this chunky boy, and it hacks, it hand winds, and it beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour.
Kaal have just modified the movement by swapping out the hour hand for the hour disc, but basically it's still just a bog standard Seiko NH35.
Which you get a tiny glimpse of through the case back, and I think it's really nicely decorated. There's an etching of the solar system with the balance wheel as the sun. It's simple, but it has just enough visual interest to still want you to take a look at it. It's running at a pretty amazing +4 seconds a day, with virtually no beat error, which is always a relief.
An NH35 at this price is kind of tricky to justify though, so with that in mind, it's only a 5 out of 10 for the movement. Now let's discuss the price.
Brand new on this amazing Halloween leather strap, the Multiverse will set you back £568.
However, you can get this for £460, 20% off the retail price. I'll tell you how a bit later. That said, I'm reviewing this at the full RRP price.
And I think that might be difficult to get over for a watch equipped with an NH35, which doesn't have a bracelet option, even if the execution is as unique and as exotic as this one. Thankfully, the warranty is 2 years, so at this rate you'll probably be covered for the duration of our planet's existence anyway. As we do approach the end times and you see the waves engulfing your front porch and you're paralysed with fear, and you wonder, just how did Kaal Watch know that all that fracking would lead to a cloudier sky? You'll glance down at your Multiverse for the last time and you won't actually remember what the brand was. Could it have been printed on one of the Eiffel Towers? Maybe. Could it have been integrated onto the chapter ring perhaps? Almost certainly. But you want to see the name somewhere, don't you?
Or at least I do. Then again, the name is Kaal. You see, Kaal to me is...
The letters are weird. Their alphabet's not like ours. Theirs are like someone testing out a biro.
And this is Kaal to me. But this Kaal, spelled K-A-A-L, is actually the Sanskrit word for time.
That's cool and everything, but I find that the best brand names, even if they do have a cool story or meaning, well, the best ones just require no thought on the part of the consumer. I'm thinking obviously Rolex, Tudor, Omega. These are classic names. I'm not sure Kaal for a watch is a classic name in the way that Kaal is a classic name for like your mate who's a builder.
Most people will have a friend or a friend of a friend whose name is Kaal, and that might be what they think of when they hear this name. It's purely subjective whether or not that bothers you at all. For me, it's just not a name that really resonates as a brand, but your mileage may vary. That's it for the price. A relatively steep RRP saved by a solid if standard warranty, but Lume Pip viewers don't have to pay full price, do they, Kaal? Thanks, Kaal. Now for the final frontier, execution.
I've not mentioned the finishing yet, but I think it could be this watch's strength. I say could because the all-brushed 316L stainless steel case is really nicely done in parts. Look at the circular brushing on that bezel, for example, and check out the transition between that bezel and the crystal. It's as smooth as, no sharpness to speak of whatsoever. The knurling on the crown is nice and grippy, as it needs to be given the aforementioned diminutive size of this thing. And the sort of bead blasted case back looks nice and demure, juxtaposed as it is to this flamboyant dial. Look between those little engraved teardrops at the 22mm lugs, however, and the vertical brushing is coarse and streaky. While the individually numbered case is a nice touch, I wish they hadn't placed it there. The case back, which isn't quite as coarse and streaky, would have been a better place for the number 14 in this case, I think. Luckily, even under macro, you can see just how impressive the earth is rendered. There's a really beautiful texture to it, which lends it a vivacity you really can't see when the light hits it. Up close, that's good, but even from afar, it looks just as good, potentially more vivid and realistic. Honestly, at a glance, you'd swear that those clouds are moving. Another thing going for the Kaal watch is the strap and how the watch just wears on your wrist, at least in small bursts. As you can see, even on my modest 6.5 inch wrist, the 42mm diameter isn't huge, thanks to the relatively compact 48mm lug-to-lug length. Obviously, there's no getting around the case height. I wish they'd used a thinner movement so as to get a slimmer case profile, possibly a Miyota one. At 19mm, it is just quite bulbous. Like I've said before, it's not the most versatile of watches. The strap does help in that regard. This is Honourable leather and it feels honestly phenomenal. The signed buckle is impeccably done as well. The strap itself features quick release spring bars, so it's a piece of cake to swap out if you've got 22mm straps knocking about. Not that you'd want to, because this is easily the most comfortable leather strap I've tried.
Like many of us though, this watch has a bit of a weight problem.
Even on the leather, it weighs in at 114 grams. A lot of that will be the crystal, but over time, it's so top heavy that your wrist does just end up aching.
And as somewhat of an expert in wrist aches for various reasons that I won't get into here, I know that that's not ideal for every day.
Even as bulbous as that crystal is, you can still get a read at the time at all angles, provided you can read the time on this thing. But you can't read it in the dark. The Lume is pretty unspectacular, which is a shame because at first it does look like it's going to be pretty promising. There's the various shades of blue and green which pop all at once, but if I speed up my footage, well, they don't pop all at once. It's the printed numerals that fade fastest, and given that we don't have a traditional hour hand plus dial marker setup, it makes it near impossible to know what time it is using the Lume alone.
That gives the Kaal watch Multiverse a 5 overall for execution. Now let's tally up those scores.
The design may well be the most important category for this watch, and for me, the huge bar that runs across the dial is a deal breaker. It makes legibility even tougher, which maybe isn't the point of this watch anyway, but it covers up really the beautifully done earth which the watch takes its name from. The movement is just meh. A Seiko NH35, come on, let's move on. At £568 or about $699, this watch is a tough sell. There's a solid 2-year warranty though, and there's obviously the 20% discount with Lume PIP20 as the discount code. The fit and finishing is the Multiverse's strongest category, with the Honourable leather strap a particular highlight. Overall, this gets a 5.
They were aiming for the stars with this watch, but they only got roughly as high as a Ryanair flight. That's still pretty high, you might say, but if you made a couple of alterations, like ditching that steel bar through the middle and maybe making the crystal a little less bulbous, it could get even higher. Here's something you won't get from Ryanair though, 20% off. If you think there's a space in the orbit of your collection for the Multiverse, then use the discount code LUMEPIP20 and that'll take the price down to £460. I don't get any commission or anything like that, it's just a discount for you guys. Let me know in the comments, am I being a bit too harsh on this? And is there anything that you'd change about it, or would you keep it exactly the same? Thanks so much for watching and making it this far. Please subscribe and like the video if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in the next one.